This giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tonight on The Farage Show, we discuss things Elon Musk, of course we do, his relationship with me, what he's been saying about Keir Starmer, indeed his interventions in the German general election. Has he got now too much influence? We'll talk grooming gangs, of course we will. The whole country's talking grooming gangs. But do you think actually in the end that Keir Starmer's going to have to give way and allow us a full public inquiry? Because I think we need it. And unbelievably, the Department of Work and Pensions has paid out in the last few years £500 million to dead pensioners and only got half of the money back. What on earth is going on in Whitehall? But before all of that, let's get the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nigel, thank you very much. The top stories, well, Jess Phillips says she has more important things to be thinking about than Elon Musk after he accused her of being a rape genocide apologist. The safeguarding minister has hit back at the billionaire's criticism for the first time.
Being in the spotlight like this and the intimation of what Elon Musk is, the disinformation, as I believe the Prime Minister referred to it as, has put out about me, it's endangering.
It's endangering you. I just want to be absolutely clear. Are you saying that as a result of some of Musk's tweets, that the threat to you has gone up and things are in place to protect your safety?
Yes.
Well, Elon Musk made the comments after Ms Phillips denied a request for the Home Office to lead a public inquiry into the horrific abuse in Oldham, saying it should be done at a local level. The town in Greater Manchester was one of a number of areas where girls as young as 11 were groomed and raped over a decade ago in a national scandal that was exposed in 2013. Professor Alexis Jay, who chaired the independent inquiry, said today that people should just get on with implementing the recommendations made in previous inquiries. The comments come as the Prime Minister dismissed calls for a national inquiry yesterday, accusing the Conservatives of jumping on a bandwagon. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick today once again called for a national inquiry. A Home Office spokesman issued the following statement. We are working at pace across government to drive forward real action to implement the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. In other news, a number of NHS trusts in England have declared critical incidents. This comes after the number of people in England's hospitals with flu quadrupled in the last month. The Royal Liverpool University Hospital declared a critical incident this afternoon due to exceptionally high demand on emergency care. It's understood the longest time that one patient waited to be admitted to a ward at the hospital was 50 hours. Several other NHS trusts later declared critical incidents, with one saying it's seen high numbers of older patients with respiratory problems exacerbated by the cold weather. And a 14-year-old boy has been stabbed to death on a bus in Woolwich in south-east London. The Metropolitan Police says an investigation has now been launched. The incident occurred on a Route 472 bus on Woolwich Church Road. A police statement says paramedics treated him, but the boy died shortly after medics arrived. No arrests have yet been made, but police are appealing for witnesses. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Now it's back to Farage.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, it's very good to be back with you after quite a break. I have to say, life has not been too quiet on my front, and Elon Musk absolutely guaranteed that over the course of the last few days. Now, as you might just have seen, it's been reported that Elon Musk has gone, apparently, from being one of my most fervent supporters to thinking I'm just not up to the job. What's it all about? Well, it's all about somebody who calls himself Tommy Robinson. He's a campaigner. He campaigns on grooming gangs and many other things. And fine, if he wants to be a campaigner, that's great. But I'm a political leader, and I don't think somebody with a long list of criminal convictions is the kind of person I want to be associated with. Well, Musk took a rather different view, as indeed many Americans do. Many Americans see Tommy Robinson as an absolute hero for free speech. I don't think he's wrong in everything he says, and I do question why he's in prison and being kept in solitary confinement. But I do think that much of what he says is kind of heading towards almost a religious war against the whole of Islam, as opposed to saying there are problems within that religion that we need to deal with. So I wasn't going to budge on that position, and that's why I got the tweet from Musk. But since then, he's retweeted me twice, and who knows, maybe we'll make up. But of bigger and deeper significance than me is he has been really on the attack against the government, on the attack against the Prime Minister, on the attack against Minister Jess Phillips. Why is he doing it? All I can tell you is that our friends in America and around the world, as they've seen over the course of the last 10 days, court transcripts over the mass rapes that took place in many, many Midlands and northern towns and cities, and people are just reading this stuff with absolute horror and disbelief. How on earth could this have happened? And I have to say, much of the reason we're having this debate is actually down to Charlie Peters, GB News' own reporter, who now says that he now believes that there are at least 50 towns and cities in our country in which these mass rapes were occurring. So that's why Musk has been lashing out, and many others have too. The question is, has he gone over the top? Is he trying to interfere in our politics too much? Is he trying to interfere in the German elections too much by supporting AfD? Or is this just the world we live in, where actually we're so interconnected that we very often influence each other's elections? The other big shock on social media was Mark Zuckerberg. Now, you might have heard that Sinek Clegg, poor old Sinek, well, I say poor old Sinek, he's worth tens of millions now, but Sinek has lost his big job at Meta, and he's been replaced by Dana White, the UFC guy from America, a fervent Trump supporter. And then we get this statement from Mark Zuckerberg today.
Because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more.
Well, I couldn't help laughing because it was Facebook, of course, that censored almost everything in the 2020 election that took place in America. It was him himself who shoveled hundreds of millions of dollars, $400 million, towards the Democrats' campaign. And those of you at home who have often liked posts that I've put up on Facebook over the last few years have found yourselves shut down or suspended. Zuckerberg even went on to say there'll be no longer any third-party moderators. They will just have a sort of a system, a sort of correction system, rather like, interestingly, the same system that Musk has on X. He even said that on Facebook and Instagram, we will be able to debate gender and immigration. Goodness gracious me. Isn't Trump's victory absolutely enormous? So I'm asking you a question of, has Musk got too much power and influence? But actually, equally, is social media now just too powerful? And if it is, what on earth can we do about it? Farage at gbnews.com for your answers. Now, joining me on the panel today is Ranil Jayawardena. Oh, I'm so sorry I got that wrong. No, he's not just Ranil. Good Lord, no. He's now Sir Ranil. Well, of course he is. Thank you, Nigel. To the programme. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Congratulations on your K. Very good indeed. Joe Phillips, regular on this show, Paddy Ashdown's former press secretary, unfortunately missed out.
Must have got lost in the post.
Must have got lost in the post.
Must have got lost
Absolutely.
in the post.
Well, two of our regular panellists, and I know ones with very, very strong views on this area. Joe, you are not a fan of Elon Musk,
That's an understatement. No, I think he's absolutely the embodiment of evil.
Evil?
Yes.
That's a very strong word.
I think he is evil, and I think...
Bringing back free speech is evil?
He's bringing back free speech, you can say, but...
I am.
And I am in favour of free speech, but not when it is making threats against people, when it is inciting people. I mean, we just heard the clip there of Jess Phillips, government minister, who he said should be in prison. He called her a witch. He called her an apologist for rape, genocide. Now, this is a man who is going to be a part of Trump's administration, so a de facto minister, if you like, in the new Trump government, talking about a minister of the Crown in this country. Now, he's entitled to his opinions. I've got opinions about gun laws and, you know...
And you're now free to say them. Not just on X, but even now on Facebook and Instagram. Isn't that a good thing?
But the problem is, Nigel, that what you end up with is untruths and disinformation. Now, there might be many people with views that I differ with, disagree with, putting up their opinions, having a sensible or, you know, agreeable disagreement like we do here. But there are also rogue states and other agents using not real people, but bots and algorithms to ferment and produce untruths.
Musk is not a bot.
No, but he's pretty close to being inhuman. And the way he's behaved, I mean, I think it's absolutely marvellous for you, actually, because I think it's done you a huge favour and made reform much more attractive to many people who might have previously voted Tory, who perhaps stayed behind.
Well, that may not be true. I mean, my position, Joe, on it is I have a certain set of principles.
Yeah.
I don't bend them for anything or anybody.
And I would just say on the Tommy Robinson thing, one of the things that I think Musk and the Americans don't understand is that he was in grave danger of derailing a court case about grooming. I think that's really important.
That is entirely true. And also, for a Republican Party, you talk about borders so much, the fact that he flew in 2013 to JFK Airport on a friend's passport because he himself was denied entry to the country because of his criminal record and then was picked up on the fingerprint machine at JFK. Yeah, I find it difficult. Ranil, you know, you're a believer in free speech, and free speech, does it not allow us to offend each other?
It must, actually, in order that you can have a full and frank debate and come to a rational conclusion at the end of it. And I've had lots of stuff thrown at me in the past, but it's important that people can have their say, and it's equally important people can have a say back. And I think what we've seen in recent times is that too few people of my political persuasion and, dare I say, even of our political persuasion, have not been able to do that. Take the trans issue, for example. There were a huge number of people who wanted to just shut that issue down. They didn't want anyone to debate, discuss, even have a thought about the fact that actually should women have some safe spaces that are protected. And as a result of free speech, including in Parliament, and this is why having free speech in Parliament is so important, we've got change, not only here, but also in the US as well.
Yeah, and let's face it, you know, Donald Trump is changing the way that social media operates. I mean, Nick Clegg would still be there if Donald Trump hadn't won. But interesting, Joe, we were talking earlier, you know, an awful lot of stuff goes around on these sites, TikTok in particular, which is very influential with the young. But you still see a very important role for mainstream media as well, don't you?
Yes, I do. And I mean, we're going to talk about grooming gangs in a minute. One of the reasons we're talking about it is because of the assiduous work of Andrew Norfolk, who was a Times Northern reporter, who began to uncover what had been going on in those northern towns. And I think, you know, you can have the TikToks, you can have the Metas, you can have all of those things, but you still need truth and facts. And I think what bothers me is that there are many, many people who won't go, Nigel Farage has said that. Let me check it out.
Oh, there was
as we've just said about Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, there was a picture today circulating of me shaking hands with George Soros. A more unlikely pairing I can't possibly think of. But that is the problem. But how do we deal? I do very much take Joe's point that there is a big role for mainstream media. You know, and they have to a large extent to get things right. They don't always, but they have to. But for a younger generation, Randall, their lives are on social media, and they don't actually read the newspapers online. They just look at TikTok.
Totally. Social media is by far the most read news source. In fact, you see other mainstream media like Channel 4 dropping off the top 10 now because no one's watching it. They're watching all their news on social media and on, you know, the debates that we're having today in this country and in the US, actually it's shaping political discourse. That's a good thing, to allow people to have a say. Keir Starmer wouldn't be getting any pressure on the grooming gangs if it wasn't for social media.
So ultimately, does the call to public opinion on social media, despite some of the nonsense that gets said, does it find a sensible ground in the end?
I think that's the whole point of debate, isn't it? That you can find a route through, and the leaders of our country can actually hear it, come to a conclusion based on what they're hearing.
But, Randall, if there's no moderation, if, you know, once upon a time...
Well, there are community notes.
Community notes, fine, which there are on Wikipedia, to be fair. You know, you can add stuff, amend stuff, edit stuff. But if there is no moderation and there is a tsunami of misinformation and lies that then turns into let's go out and attack this person, whether it's Jess Phillips or the local mosque or whatever it is.
Who moderates the moderator?
Well, yeah, but I mean, misinformation is a word that's used by people who don't like the arguments that are being made quite often.
Well, no,
that's what I think.
Well, I would take offence at that, actually, because I'm not using it in that thing. It's about people knowing the truth and being able to sort out the facts. You know, there's a difference between opinion and fact. You can have whatever opinion you like, but there are facts. Otherwise, why would you be calling for a public inquiry?
No, because I think, and we're going to come to that in a moment. So, does Elon Musk have too much influence?
Absolutely.
Randall, does Elon Musk? No?
No, he's... As a private citizen, he's entitled to have a view. I think the interesting thing for President Trump is that possible whilst having a role in the administration?
Exactly.
That's something
that post the 20th of January is going to be a very big question, because the role that he's been appointed to, Doge, is to cut $2 trillion of the budget that's spent on the public sector in America. Be good if he succeeded with that, though, wouldn't it?
Well, maybe you could take a leaf out of the DWP's book.
Well, we're going to come to that as well in just a moment.
I'm trailing away.
All stories lead one into the other. In a moment, we are going to talk grooming gangs. We're going to talk about whether there needs to be a full national inquiry. There will be a debate tomorrow in Parliament on broader issues around children and the care of children. There'll be amendments put down, effectively wrecking amendments on that. But do you think at home that Keir Starmer is going to have to give in on this? Because I do.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Mr. Motivator, he joins us now. Mr. Motivator, a very happy new year to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. There you are, bright and early. So how are things? How can we all kick ourselves into shape?
By the end of January, most people have thrown their New Year's resolution out the window. I think what's important is that we make a change for life, and we set ourselves small goals, and as we achieve those goals, then we reward ourselves. And in other words, you want to run 10K, you don't immediately get up and go run 10K, do you? You run between 2 lampposts and walk between 20. If you're not into running, don't choose running. If you're into dancing, that's great. If you're into any kind of movement, that is the way to keep yourself active, healthy, and also maintain your independence.
So, Derek, is the point that you keep it manageable and small enough that it's achievable?
Why don't we just find 4 exercises that you do for 1 minute each exercise, and you do that 4 times a day? Achievable, isn't it? That's only 4 minutes of exercise. And I guarantee at the end of the day, you'd have done 12 minutes, which is like your daily dozen. So there's your goal. I want to do a daily dozen of exercise lasting a minute each, right? And the first thing you could be doing is getting up from your chair, right? The moment you stand up, you incorporate so many muscles in your legs, right, that you're going to feel good, yes? So,
right, go on then. Get up off your chair, Adam. Show me how it's done.
Easy, come on.
Easy, yeah. Look at
no
that.
hand. The next thing I want you to do is to reach up real high. And if you bring it down, up
I'll
and
do
down.
that one.
Yeah.
For a minute, palms facing.
Oh, for a minute?
You're not flying a minute. That's better.
There we go.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Some of your thoughts from home. Chris says, Musk does not have too much influence because we are free to decide for ourselves whether to be influenced. If we have no choice but to be influenced, we have lost our freedoms. Ryan says, Musk does not have too much influence because we are free to decide for ourselves. There you are. Everyone's coming to the same view, which is surprising, but that's the GB News audience. And hey, if there ever was a channel on British television that believed in free speech, it is here. Now, let's talk grooming gangs, and let's have a look. When Keir Starmer was asked whether we needed to have a full national inquiry, let's see what Keir Starmer had to say.
It is something about the nature of our politics, because once we lose the anchor that truth matters, in the robust debate we must have, then we're on a very slippery slope. And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth, and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It's all the far right. Wanting to know the truth means you're part of the far right. Now, tomorrow, Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, she'll be asking in the House of Commons, she'll be putting an amendment down, effectively saying there needs to be a full public inquiry. Her difficulty, of course, is that the Conservative government, when they were faced with this, didn't have an inquiry. There was one, but it was a whitewash, frankly, because it only looked at what had happened in 6 towns and cities as opposed to the 50 that we know about now. And grooming was just but a part of it. What we need here is an inquiry that is not a shotgun that deals with all of the problems that young people can face, and that can be through the church or elsewhere. We know about these things. We need a rifle that deals with what I believe was outright racist behaviour against young white girls, who some, mercifully few, but some in the Pakistani community simply thought were trash. I have said that if the government don't give us a full review, that I will raise the money and put the money towards an independent inquiry, and I mean it. It was also very interesting that the Times leader today said, look, there has to be, the public demands that we get the full truth, because it feels like through the police, through social services, through political parties, we've not been told the truth for fear it might stoke racist division, the irony being that the crimes themselves were very racist in intent. Well, one person who's been trying very, very hard to get this debated for a long time is Lord Pearson of Rannoch. Let's see him in action in the House of Lords in 2018.
We seem to be looking at millions of rapes of white and Sikh girls by Muslim men, only 222 of whom have been convicted since 2005. So, my lords, will the government ask our Muslim leaders whether the perpetrators can claim that their behaviour is sanctioned in the Quran and to issue a fatwa against it? And second, my lords, will the government encourage a national debate about the various interpretations of Islam? Can we talk about Islam without being accused of hate crime?
Well, joining me down the line live is Lord Pearson, former leader of UKIP, current independent life peer, and he joins me from the remote Scottish Highlands where, Malcolm, I believe it's minus 20, is that right?
I fear not, it's only minus 10.
Oh, right, OK, well, there we are. It's obviously rather mild where you are. Now, Malcolm, what was interesting seeing that clip from 2018 was the clearly very rough reception that you were getting from your fellow peers in what is supposed to be the politest of all chambers. Why, oh why, do you think it's been so difficult to discuss this issue?
Well, I think our Muslim friends have been very clever in inventing a word which is difficult to get round, and that word is Islamophobia. And as soon as you tried to talk about Islam in any way at all, you were jumped on for being Islamophobic. And it's not a very helpful word, because a phobia is an unreasonable fear of something, and yet it isn't unreasonable. It is not in the least bit phobic to fear the modern world's most violent ideology, which is what Islamism still is today.
And let's be clear, Islamism is what Lord Pearson said there, not condemning everybody in that religion. That point matters.
Well,
that point's fundamental. Yeah.
Or you can talk about radical Islam. You can. That's another way of putting it. But the problem has been that as soon as you mentioned it, I say you get jumped on, and the debate is sort of closed down. And I'm really delighted, and I'm very grateful to you, Nigel, for bringing this forward. That we can at last start talking about it. Because the first thing you have to do in all this is to talk about Islam and Islamism, and understand, where it's all coming from. Otherwise, we'll never get level with it.
Malcolm, you talked about millions of rapes, extraordinary number. Do you think, in the light of the fact that we can, as you say now, discuss this more easily than we could back in 2018, do you think a full public inquiry into what happened to these young girls would help?
Well, providing it isn't an inquiry that goes on forever with the intention of kicking the issue into the long grass, yes, a focused, short, accurate inquiry, of course, would be helpful. It's what we need.
Lord Pearson, thank you for joining us live from the chilly Scottish Highlands. Joe, Malcolm Pearson raises a very important point there, that an inquiry can be a way of just literally kicking something into the long. I mean, the COVID inquiry, goodness knows. Yeah. By the time we get the results, we'll have all forgotten what happened.
Alexis Jay's inquiry, 7 years, £200 million. Yeah.
But is there an effective way that we could do this?
Well, I think, as Lord Pearson said, and I think as you alluded to, if you are going to have an inquiry, and if there is, and I do think Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch are jumping on a bandwagon. Yeah. I don't like that phrase, the far right. They're jumping on a bandwagon for opportunistic reasons. They were in power for 14 years and did nothing. Yeah. And I think it's very clear that there are many, many issues here. But the one that is fundamental, Nigel, is that nobody believed the girls. Mm. They weren't believed by
social services, police.
The police. The police actually have got an awful lot to answer for.
Anne Cryer, the Labour MP,
Anne Cryer,
in 2002.
Maggie Oliver. you know, who was a detective who resigned, who's very often on GB News and other media outlets. There are many, many people who should take some of the blame. But these girls were not believed because they were not thought to be worthy of belief. And there are a whole load of issues here about looked after children, many of them
class
were in
prejudice.
care, class prejudice. You know, we've heard the same, different class, but going on at Harrods, cover-up. Sexual abuse on a scale. So there are many, many things. And I think, you know, there perhaps is a case for a very short, time-limited...
But the rifle shot that I described.
Laser-focused on what... but you've got to be absolutely clear what it is you want to find out. And I think what you want to find out is whether there has been a cover-up. Not necessarily to come out with, you know, it was all is... Because I think at the heart of this, it is a class prejudice against those girls.
It feels like a cover-up to me. Sir Ranald, there's no point me slagging off the last government, you know, but there's a more interesting question here. Malcolm said it was difficult because as soon as you say anything, you're accused of Islamophobia. The Labour government are on the verge of enshrining, we believe, Islamophobia in law. That would set quite a dangerous precedent. After all, I mean, I can sit here and take the mickey out of the Pope, or, well, mercifully, the Church of England Archbishop's going. But the idea that we could always take the mickey out of religions, and I say this to you on the anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo massacre, this is quite dangerous, isn't it?
So, as a practicing Christian, I'd agree with you that, you know, freedom of speech is something we've just talked about. It's something that we've accepted is a really important principle in this country, and you can't have freedom of speech for some people, but not for others. And you can't have special classes who are protected from that freedom. But I do think that in terms of the inquiry that we're calling for now, I think, first of all, it's slightly unfair to say nothing was done, because at least there was an independent inquiry. I think that the more valid charge...
It was very broad in what it was looking at.
The valid charge is it was very broad, and more needs to be done.
And covered 6 towns. We now know this is much bigger than that.
Well, correct. And it covered Dolphin Square through to the Church of England. So it was a start. It was an important start in saying, look, we do believe people. Some people wrongly made false allegations and have been found out.
Carl Beach.
So we need to now make sure we learn from that too. I think we've got to learn about inquiries full stop, though, because you've referenced the COVID inquiry. The way inquiries are done under the Inquiries Act needs to be changed.
No, there needs to be a regular report back to Parliament on what's happened.
And they do need to be time limited, because the money that would be spent on another Alexis
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Lots of agreement here, good Lord. Now, a government spokesperson from the Home Office has issued the following statement. No child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it is paramount we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we are working at pace across government to drive forward real action to implement the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. Very useful. Now, talking of government departments, in a moment we're going to find out how and why the Department for Work and Pensions has paid 500 million quid in pensions to dead pensioners. What is Whitehall all about, and what can we do?
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A very good evening to you. Now the sun has set, the temperatures are tumbling. Hard frost tonight. That'll be around for much of tomorrow morning. An ice risk in some areas and some places seeing further snow. We need to watch this weather front just pushing up from the south. The weather system that's brought all the snow recently has cleared away, but we've still got the winds coming down from the north. Plenty of snow showers still to come across Northern Ireland and northern and the west coast of Scotland. The snow showers we've seen through the day across northwest England, North Wales should fade away. For many, it's a dry night, clear night. And there's that hard frost, minus double digits in some parts of the countryside. So yes, a very cold start to Wednesday. Still some snow showers over northern Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still potentially very icy here first thing in the morning. Met Office yellow warning remains in place. Further covering of snow, further few centimetres through the night and into the morning. Same goes for Northern Ireland as well. Could also be a bit foggy here first thing, and we could have some fog patches too over northwest England, parts of the North Midlands. But most of England and Wales starting dry and very frosty, but down to the southwest, signs of a change. That weather front we saw earlier just nudging northwards. Some uncertainty about how much progress it makes, and that will be crucial for how much snow we see. At the moment, it looks like we'll see quite a bit of rain on the south coast, but there is the potential for some heavy snow for a time during Wednesday across southern counties of England. So there's a warning in place for that. As I say, just the potential at this stage, something we're keeping a close eye on. Further north, for many places, dry and a bright day tomorrow, but it will be a cold one. The winds, though, generally lighter, particularly over northern Scotland, where they've been perishing today. Still a few wintry showers coming in here. That mixture of sleet and snow and rain across the south scoots away through the evening time. Again, a hard frost for Thursday morning, so again, potentially icy in places. But for many places, a fine, bright, cold winter's day.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is extraordinary. So a colleague of mine, Rupert Lowe, puts in more questions probably than any MP's ever put in history. But we do get some very illuminating answers back. This one seems to be totally extraordinary. The Department of Work and Pensions have, since 2019-2020 tax year, paid out £512 million in pensions to deceased persons. The most extraordinary thing is that only half of it has come back because, believe it or believe it not, there is no legal obligation for the families to return the money. I find it really, really hard to believe that one man that perhaps doesn't, who's helped run departments in Whitehall, is Sir Ranulph. I mean, this is almost unbelievable.
Sadly, I do believe this. It is shocking. There is no defence for it. This stuff actually goes back in the DWP decades. I remember my first job in government was as PPS at the Department for Work and Pensions, and it was explained to me how antiquated the systems were, but also how expensive it would be to change anything.
So the argument is don't change.
And that is exactly the argument that was from civil servants at the time. It's also why the Christmas bonus is done manually, because to change the system would be more expensive than the bonus itself. It's time for real radical reform of these things. And, you know, if we can't do it internally, then I'm sure there are other people, businesses, who could actually come in and administer these systems for us.
I mean, it's like, you think about, Yes Minister. I mean, clearly it was all true.
Yes, and you watch it today and it still holds up to the test of time.
I mean, this is just awful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's appalling. I mean, that is such a lot of money and it is so incompetent. And I find it staggering that there is no way of getting it back because you have to let everybody know when somebody's died and it's very easy to do.
I simply can't believe it. And that's why, I'm going to say this, that's why Elon actually matters. Because if he's able to get into what they call the deep state, the Republicans, but these massive departments, I mean, forget the size of Whitehall, the whole situation in DC is unbelievable. If he's able to get in there and bring, and Ranulph was alluding to sort of business-style discipline and radical change, if Musk was able to do that, not being distracted by anything else, that maybe would be an incredible playbook that we could use afterwards.
Absolutely. But, I mean, this is the same department that hounds carers, if they earn a penny over the limit, and that impacts on their care allowance. I mean, it beggars belief. But the thing is, where's the curiosity, either from ministers or PPSs or, anybody joining? If you joined it, why aren't you saying, hang on a second?
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Well,
you know, and also, the digital technology, you should be able to marry up death certificates with payments.
Now, I mean, this is the other extraordinary thing, is that the civil service's productivity has fallen 8.5% since before the pandemic. But the productivity per person is the same as 1997, despite all the technology and the shortcuts. It is not good enough.
Bring back the postal order, that's what I think.
Now, the Farage moment for today is the Islamic Sunday school teacher, and I'm going to pronounce her name, Jamilah Timayah. That's probably got that wrong. But the important thing is that she and her family arrived in Britain in 2013 as refugees from Chechnya, having already been denied asylum in Switzerland and Luxembourg. And here we find a Sunday school teacher who has been given children lessons in jihad, who has lots and lots of ISIS videos and downloads. And it raises, I think, a very, very big question. Joe Phillips, we are a country that has always prided itself on giving genuine refugee status to people in real trouble. But you do begin to ask yourself, from countries like Chechnya, Afghanistan, Iran, whether we're not just importing terrorism.
Well, she or her family were apparently refused asylum in
Luxembourg
and Switzerland, and then came here. And she is being sentenced on March the 7th.
And we're a soft touch.
It would see, again, it comes back to curiosity, doesn't it? You know, why wasn't somebody saying, well, why were they refused asylum in Germany, in Austria and Luxembourg, Switzerland and Luxembourg? And, you know, that whole thing about curiosity, in a way, it goes back to the beginning of the conversation at the start of the programme, Nigel, because it's the curiosity that should make you think, when you see something that Elon Musk says or whoever, hang on a minute, is that true?
Yeah.
I want to find more
it's
about
fair
it.
point. I mean, Ranald, you know, basically in the last 14 years, just anyone just turn up and basically got asylum.
Well, not true, but I happen to agree that...
What do you mean
in case?
true?
Well, no, there is...
Numbers are enormous.
I agree with that, but there are people who are refused. The troubling thing here is that someone who was refused by 2 other countries who are also part of the European Court of Human Rights, so that's not even the problem here.
No.
They refused her and we didn't. So, you know, clearly there's more to be done.
You know what? If we'd refused her, she'd still be here anyway.
Worryingly, too many people do slip through the cracks, and it's important there is more discipline on that.
Down to your backlog, I'm afraid.
Well, dare I say, the Labour Party has removed any disincentive for people to come here in the first place.
Soft touch Britain, I don't approve, because the first duty of government should be to protect its citizens. Now, one country that's taken a real backward step is Afghanistan. And there was particular hope in Afghanistan for one sport in particular, cricket, at which they were getting better and better and better. In a moment, we will be joined by Henry Blofeld, OBE, who was an expert on cricket in Afghanistan. But now, women have been completely banned from playing all sport. Is it time we considered a boycott along the lines of the one we had against apartheid South Africa all those years ago? I think the parallel...
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're on the hunt for some winter sun, I'm afraid it's often going to be cloudy, also with some rain. Largely dry across central areas, but it is going to be windy at times. Some cloud and rain moving into parts of Madeira and Lisbon, though largely dry across Tenerife and largely dry across central areas of the Mediterranean too. But as we move further east, more cloud for parts of Italy and also Greece, and this could be thick enough to produce some rain at times. More in the way of sunshine towards the end of the week, and temperatures widely in the mid to high teens.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as an upcycling consultant.
I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a destination, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop. You need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025, what can we expect fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollals and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So, Welsh Labour MP Tonia Antoniazza has issued a statement. I, alongside 160 parliamentarians, have written to the England Welsh Cricket Board urging them to speak out against the Taliban's unconscionable oppression of women and girls and boycott their upcoming match against Afghanistan in the Champions Trophy. And it is all a bit of an awful shame that I'm afraid, Taliban have banned women from taking part in sport at all. I think there is a parallel here between apartheid, South Africa, and whether boycotts are the right thing or the wrong thing is always a very contentious issue. I'm delighted to be joined down the line by Henry Blofeld OBE, former cricket broadcaster. But Henry, before we get to the serious stuff, I do remember hearing you in one of your evenings with Blowers telling us that you drove a Rolls-Royce from London to Afghanistan. This can't be true, surely.
No, my dear, I think it's absolutely true. It took us 46 days and nights. There were 5 of us, and I think it's probably fair to say the cars were easily the least temperamental members of the party. And it was an extraordinary adventure. It was the adventure of my life, really. And nothing went wrong. I mean, we did actually, the Rolls had, I think, half a dozen new tires flown out to Tehran, as one does. No, that was about it.
Now, to the more serious stuff. Now, Afghanistan were getting better and better at cricket. They had some really promising players, some good results in the 2024 World Cup. But, of course, they've banned women from playing cricket, just as apartheid South Africa banned the Cape-coloured and black players. Do boycotts work, Blowers?
Well, they worked in South Africa. But the fact is, this is a much bigger issue than cricket. I mean, it's a really fundamental one because South Africa were choosing their players on the basis of colour, weren't they? And in Afghanistan, it's on the basis of sex. And whether you're male or female, it's utterly wrong. And that there should be a ban without any doubt whatever, because what they're doing is shocking. And it doesn't matter. Okay, people may say the Taliban will be harder to turn over than the white South African government, but you don't pick your opponents on these issues. This is something so fundamental. I personally think England should not play Afghanistan, and I'm very surprised that the ICC hasn't stepped in. And the ICC really, in a sense, is not so much the International Cricket Council as the Indian Cricket Council, because they run it. And after all, India are a coloured nation, and I should have thought they must have understood this, surely, as well as you and I are doing tonight.
Well, you'd have thought so. I mean, I have to tell you, Henry, I am one of the 160 MPs and peers that have signed this letter. I feel exactly as you feel. I think the criticism is, whilst it is ultimately the International Cricket Council's decision, I think we feel that the England and Wales Cricket Board have been a bit mealy-mouthed on this.
Well, do you think, I mean, yes, I agree, but then the ECB, as they're known, are paid, I suppose, a significant amount of money by the ICC in the course of a year, aren't they? Because they get their handout, you know, from the international cricket, all that money that goes to the ICC. So in a sense, they are doing their paymaster's duty, aren't they?
Yeah, understood. And finally, Henry, we're missing you on Test Match Special terribly.
Well, it's jolly kind of you to say so, but the awful thing is that with my eyes in the state that they are, I think you, if I came back to Test Match Special, you would want to get rid of me even quicker.
Henry, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Actually, if Henry couldn't see who the batsman or bowler was, I couldn't really care less because he's so entertaining. And
16.
And, I mean, what a wonderful story, the role. I mean, unbelievable. Blowers is lovely. He really is, and a friend. He was really quite strong there, wasn't he?
Yes, and he's
Very
quite
strong.
right. And I think, you know, he can speak with huge authority.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. And the ICC and the ECB are doing what they normally do. They're going, oh, well, it's too difficult, it's too hard. Well, we can't do that. Well, actually, we can. And we saw the disruption that boycotts and protests did during the apartheid years at Twickenham and at Lord's and the Oval and not going on tours. And I think it's absolutely fundamental because it isn't just about girls and women playing cricket, Nigel. Girls and women are soon going to be banned from having any windows. Yeah. You know, this is appalling.
Well done, Joe Biden. Wonderful. Now, Ranald, I see you at Lord's every year. You're a great, great cricket lover. How do you feel about this? Do you think boycotts work?
Well, I have to say, I'm not sure boycotts do work. I do have a great sympathy with what everyone's said, that, you know, this is clearly the wrong decision, that, you know, women and girls should be able to play cricket. And my two daughters love watching the women play cricket at Lord's during the 100, which I know is not your favourite competition. But the point is that the ECB is bound by the ICC's rules, which we've just heard.
Sometimes you
hang on. Hear me out. You know, the ICC have got to try and find some sort of consensus here. Only Australia so far has said that they won't take part. That's my understanding. Yep. So they've got to try and build some sort of consensus. If a consensus can be reached, that's a different matter. But right now, the ECB is playing within the rules. It's refused to play a test series with Afghanistan. So it's made its position really, really clear in that regard. So I'd implore them to influence the ICC and get the decision taken.
But the trouble is, Henry says that the ICC is run by the Indians, and so they'll decide.
Well, India doesn't necessarily want Afghanistan to do this either, right? You know, the Indian cricket teams, the franchises there are huge, both for men and for women. Yeah. So, you know, they've got a very different view. And, you know, there are many partners around the world who would share our instincts. So it's important, I think, to get the decision taken in the right way. That's a sustainable way of sending a clear message.
Thank you. And somebody else I meet at Lord's every year. And of course, I mean, all these former Tory ministers, I mean, they're all Sir, or virtually everybody's Sir. And we're surrounded, poor old Joe and I, with a commoner.
We're nothing.
Well, you deserve a dukedom. Henry was really, I mean, obviously, as ever, hilarious, but very passionate on this subject. How do you feel?
Yes, well, I waited to hear what Henry had to say, actually, because he understands and loves the game so much. He forgot to say one thing. That was the I in the ICC used to stand for in the good old days was imperial. And sadly, it's got gradually downgraded.
You never get better, Jacob, but yeah.
But I think he was making a very fair point, and the ECB is basically wet. and waiting for all this international agreement. Look, Raoul, you and I don't like being told what to do by international courts. We don't like the ECHR, we don't like the ECJ, we don't like being bossed about by foreign courts. We should do our own thing. If we don't think Afghanistan is behaving properly, it's a decision for the British, for the UK, not to be ordered round by some international cricket conference.
But they have decided that in our own context when we're playing test series we refuse to do that.
But
we haven't been bossed around in that regard.
It's England playing, it's not the ICC playing.
And they could say, we will not play Afghanistan. They've been drawn against them in the group. They could say, we're not going to. Sometimes you have to, in cricket, find your balls.
Someone doesn't...
Oh,
sorry.
There you are. All of that should be after 9 o'clock, really, but never mind.
But nobody really cares about watching England versus Afghanistan anyway. So there's no real money in it. If we're England against Australia, it's different.
Hang on, Jacob. This is about principle, not about money, surely.
Of course, with the ECB, it's about money. It's always about money with the ECB. And the ICC. The reason the ICC operates as it does is because all the money comes from India.
Is money ruining sport?
Yes, I think it is. And I think, you know, sport has become increasingly venal. And we've seen it with football, particularly, you know, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. We've seen so many things, and it is such a shame.
But there was one sporting sensation over the holiday period. 17-year-old Luke Littler winning the dart. Did you watch any of it?
Yeah.
No, I'm afraid my children have been rather occupying my time.
Well, you should watch it because it's amazing.
I played darts with my children over the Christmas holiday.
How good were you?
Appalling. I get it on the board. I think I've done quite well.
11 million people. Watch the darts.
I know. It's
and
amazing.
Suddenly, this is a sport that's going global, and it's a very straightforward game in one sense, and everyone can play it. I think it's terrific.
Good for pubs, Nigel.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you know, that's what pubs used to be, and sadly they're all restaurants now, but never mind. Jacob, what are you discussing tonight?
Well, Suella Braverman is joining me to talk about the failures of multiculturalism, particularly in relation to the grooming scandal. We're going to be talking about that, the amendment that's down to the bill tomorrow that would stop it because there isn't a
But take down the whole bill.
But the whole bill is a bad bill, actually, because it attacks academies and so on and so forth. So it's quite right to take down the whole bill.
OK, very good indeed. Thank you to my panel. As ever, a wide range of subjects, lots of passion. State of the Nation coming up next. But first, well, it was -10 with Lord Pearson earlier. Alex Deakin, what will it be later on this evening?
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A very good evening to you. Now the sun has set, the temperatures are tumbling. Hard frost tonight. That'll be around for much of tomorrow morning. An ice risk in some areas and some places seeing further snow. We need to watch this weather front just pushing up from the south. The weather system that's brought all the snow recently has cleared away, but we've still got the winds coming down from the north. Plenty of snow showers still to come across Northern Ireland and northern and the west coast of Scotland. The snow showers we've seen through the day across northwest England, North Wales should fade away. For many, it's a dry night, clear night. And there's that hard frost, minus double digits in some parts of the countryside. So, yes, a very cold start to Wednesday. Still some snow showers over northern Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still potentially very icy here first thing in the morning. Met Office yellow warning remains in place. Further covering of snow, further few centimetres through the night and into the morning. Same goes for Northern Ireland as well. Could also be a bit foggy here first thing, and we could have some fog patches too over northwest England, parts of the North Midlands. But most of England and Wales starting dry and very frosty. But down to the southwest, signs of a change. That weather front we saw earlier just nudging northwards. Some uncertainty about how much progress it makes, and that will be crucial for how much snow we see. At the moment, it looks like we'll see quite a bit of rain on the south coast, but there is the potential for some heavy snow for a time during Wednesday across southern counties of England. So there's a warning in place for that. As I say, just the potential at this stage, something we're keeping a close eye on. Further north for many places, dry and a bright day tomorrow, but it will be a cold one. The winds, though, generally lighter, particularly over northern Scotland, where they've been perishing today. Still a few wintry showers coming in here. That mixture of sleet and snow and rain across the south scoots away through the evening time. Again, a hard frost for Thursday morning, so again, potentially icy in places. But for many places, a fine, bright, cold winter's day.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£50,000 in tax-free cash is like having over £4,000 each month to play with for a whole year. And it could be yours in the biggest Great British giveaway so far. That could be a holiday each month, your mortgage covered, or just the ability to send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Before she even met Prince Harry, her passion was sharing recipe tips, lifestyle, wellness techniques, because she had a blog, quite a successful blog actually, called The Tig. Of course, that had to be shut down when she became a working member of the royal family. We all know the turmoil that happened with Megxit. Now that her and Harry have come out the other side of that and have signed multi-million-pound deals with Netflix and others, this is the proof in the pudding, pardon the pun, and it is basically, I suspect, the TIG 2.0, because we've got everybody, she has managed to get everybody talking about this. You know, the royal family has been dragged through turmoil over the last few years because partly due to Harry and Meghan's decision, partly due to the royal family's decision, but this is kind of what's come out the other side.
Which is a load of nonsense. I mean, the fact, because it's all totally fake, isn't it? I mean, it's not her house, it's not her kitchen. She clearly doesn't spend her days picking strawberries and collecting honey from bees. I mean, the whole thing's just a fabrication.
Well, it's Netflix fantasy, isn't it? So I think any lifestyle programme such as this tends to not be filmed in the host's house. It's reportedly a $5 million rented house. The cooker itself is worth about $15,000. Even the pans are about $80 as well that she is using. So yes, Stephen, you're right. It is kind of fake and fantasy, but then, of course, that's how these lifestyle programmes are made. It's whether the question will be when you watch the series, if you decide to watch the series, is Meghan trying to portray herself as this authentic self, or is she going to make it clear that, you know, this is just like the best bits of her life? But she's got lots of celebrity friends involved in it, including her makeup artists and others as well. Prince Harry makes an appearance.
Of course he
does.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation. Tonight, the Labour Party has shamed itself once again as it plans to vote in the Commons against the Conservative Party's proposal to have